This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Hello, I'm Michael Cutler, and this is the Michael Cutler Moment brought to you by the Glazov Gang. Thank you so much for joining me. Today, my topic is going to be, appropriately enough, Monday having been Martin Luther King's birthday, the impact of immigration law enforcement on civil rights. There's been a lot of misinformation spewed by so many people, whether it's politicians, the media, this notion that illegal aliens are supposed to get civil rights, and drawing the analogy of those folks, for example, mayors of sanctuary cities, are somehow doing something wonderful to further and advance this notion of civil rights. So let's start off by understanding that civil rights were enacted, civil rights laws, that is to say, were originally enacted to undo the damage done to the Black American community through slavery, through the Jim Crow, and in 1964, the Civil Rights Act was enacted to address those issues. And one of the key components was Title VII, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission was created. And the whole idea was to provide economic opportunities to women facing discrimination in the workplace. Eventually, the laws were broadened, the understanding of civil rights were broadened to include protected groups of Americans and lawful immigrants. But illegal aliens are not only not protected by the civil rights laws, they should not be. The idea of being a full participant in a society for people whose very presence states represents a violation of laws that were enacted to protect American lives and the jobs of Americans, along with national security and public health, is irrational. Furthermore, by flooding America with millions upon millions of foreign workers, which is what the Obama administration has done, frankly, it's what has been going on for quite some time. But of course, Mr. Obama ratcheted this up to unprecedented levels, has deprived American workers of job opportunities. And most of those folks who suffered the worst were American blacks and American Latinos. So the notion that somehow providing civil rights protection to illegal aliens contradicts the law, it contradicts common sense, and it does tremendous damage to Americans who are most at risk. America's minorities facing discrimination in the workplace. Why in the world would you want to make Americans compete with foreign workers? And we know what the impact is. It drives down wages, it drives down working conditions, and it makes it ever more difficult for Americans living in poverty, irrespective of race, religion, or ethnicity, makes it almost impossible, in fact, for them to break out of this cycle of poverty. I've written about it for Front Page Magazine. I've been discussing it everywhere. Somebody has to set the record straight. Civil rights are supposed to protect Americans first. The connect that we're seeing from so many politicians who want to make it sound as though mayors of sanctuary cities are as heroic as the Freedom Riders who ended segregation in the South. So let's understand the damage that's being done by this wrong-headed notion. Then, if we look at that issue, the obvious follow-on issue is the damage being done by sanctuary cities. A good friend of mine is Congressman Lou Barletta from Hazleton, Pennsylvania. He proposed legislation just a couple of weeks ago, H.R. 83, that would completely defund sanctuary cities. Understand how dangerous sanctuary cities are. They are magnets for illegal aliens, aliens who ran the border because they know that there is something in their background that would prevent them from entering the United States legally. And if you look at Title 8, United States Code Section 1182, this isn't a law lesson, but I want you to check that section of law out. What you're going to find is the categories of aliens to be excluded from the United States. It includes aliens who have dangerous communicable diseases. Let's remember Ellis Island, we hear so much about it, was a quarantine station. Aliens who suffer severe mental illness and are violent, sex offenders. aliens who are criminals and spies and human rights violators, war criminals, fugitives from justice, and terrorists. And then we get to aliens who would likely become a public charge, or aliens who, if they worked, would likely displace Americans and at the very least drive down the wages of American workers similarly employed, because let's face it, labor is a commodity. Flood the market with a commodity, you drive down the value of the commodity. So the idea that there are cities across the country, nearly 300 at last count, that provide so-called sanctuary for aliens who violated our borders, violated our laws, and may well pose a threat to national security and public safety is, to use a technical term, nuts. This makes no sense, and we need to have honest discussions about what the real issues are. Ever since the election of Donald Trump, we've seen all these people beating their breasts and saying they're not going to go to the inauguration because he's anti-immigrant. So let's dispel that notion. Being pro-immigration law enforcement is to be pro-immigrant. We admit more than 1 million lawful immigrants into the United States each and every year under those very same laws that Mr. Trump has insisted need to be enforced. Those are the laws that I spent 30 years of my adult life enforcing and administering. Those laws have nothing to do with race, nothing to do with religion, nothing to do with ethnicity. Those laws are all about protecting the well-being of America and Americans. So when we hear people who were the leaders of the civil rights movement standing up and demanding that we provide civil rights for illegal aliens, they should know better. This simply undermines opportunities for all Americans, and the minorities, American minorities, suffer the greatest harm because of these wrong-headed notions. So we really have to get to the point of understanding what the issues really are. And what the issues really are is that America should be looking out for the interests of Americans before this country looks out for anybody else's interests. Families tend to take care of their children before they take care of other kids. When there's a tragedy, a boat capsizes, a building catches fire, it's not unusual to see parents race into the building first and foremost to rescue their own children. Certainly, if they could rescue other kids, they will. But their first obligation, their first concern, naturally enough, is to race into that building to try to save their own kids. Our country should be more concerned with looking out for our own citizens than we are about anybody else on the planet. Not out of selfishness, but out of pragmatism. Our country should make the safety and well-being of its citizens the first priority, not unlike that responsible parent that makes his or her child their first priority. A final thought. When we're on airplanes, we're told that if the pressure in the cabin drops, oxygen masks will pop out of the compartments above the seats. And we are advised to put the oxygen on first for ourselves so that we can help those around us. America and Americans today need that oxygen. For America to be strong and a force for democracy and freedom throughout the world, America needs to be strong. And that strength comes from effective immigration law enforcement and secure borders. This isn't about xenophobia, common sense. People who lock their doors at night aren't demonstrating a lack of compassion or being antisocial, they're being prudent. Similarly, America's borders must be secure to protect America and Americans so that we can continue to be that leader in the world. I thank you so much for joining me today. And I want to remind you to please support the Glazov Gang and make certain that you are subscribed to its YouTube channel. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you again soon. So long.